The next presentation is by Dr. Craig Hartzer. Craig was a former executive director of PERF, former deputy mayor up in South Bend, I believe, has been a RIPIA board member. And the board decided to do a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. And Craig and Bruce Kimmery headed up that group of developing that plan. And Craig's going to go over that with you and answer any questions you may have. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Craig Hartzer.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be with fellow PERF retirees. It's a real honor, a real privilege to be here with you this morning. How about another round of applause for all the great work that Bill Murphy does on behalf of RIPIA. So I can tell from standing in the back that it's a bit of a challenge to see some of the material on the screens. So that's why you have a handout at the table that should cover all of the material that is being presented today. So if you would, find the handout, please, and turn to the pages that focus in on the strategic plan. That way it'll be easier for you to follow some of the material that is going to be covered. So let me give you a second to find that, because I know it's kind of hard to read, especially from the back of the room. All right? So let me start by asking my fellow PERF retirees, how many of you during your careers, or even now, as you volunteer at your church or some other service organization back in your community, how many of you have been through or participated in a strategic planning process? Let me see a show of hands. Quite a few of you, right? And let me say that I have participated in many during my career in the public sector, in local government and in state government. And I can tell you, I participated in some really good ones, and I participated in some that had a lot of room for improvement. Anybody have that experience? Yeah, right? And so this strategic plan, one of the first strategic plans done for RIPIA in a long time, was initiated by the board, as Bill mentioned, to try to take advantage of a lot of the good work that's been done by Bill and the staff and by the board members, by the chapters over the years, and think about what do we want to be doing over the next 3 years, at least next 3 years. So one of the processes that we followed that took a little time was to focus in on our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. Right? You've been through that process, right? A SWOT analysis. So we spent some time focusing in on those particular issues to help us think about the next 3 years and what we wanted to accomplish at RIPIA. And so one of the things that we generated was a vision statement. And you can see that vision statement, right, in your handout. And you can see it, I think, up here on the big screen. Now, this strategic plan was approved by your board at a special meeting on July 29th. But I thought we would just spend a couple of seconds, well, maybe a few more than a couple of seconds, reviewing this vision statement. Because I believe that RIPIA, over the years, this is our 50th anniversary, isn't that amazing? 50 years of existence. It seems to me that RIPIA has been and will continue to be a very trusted source of information for public employees who have been retired and those that are thinking about retirement. And we wanted to begin this process and this strategic plan with that statement, that RIPIA is and will continue to be a trusted source. And I think that's really critical, that people trust RIPIA to advocate and to educate on their behalf. The second statement is the mission statement. And that mission statement, you can read it, has been in place for many years. And our team that worked on the strategic planning process, many of the board members that are here today, volunteers, key stakeholders, we decided that that mission statement was spot on, that we really didn't need to do anything with it. So you can read the vision statement for RIPIA, right? Pretty succinct. And there's the mission statement, the day-to-day work of this excellent organization. So through this strategic planning process, guess what? We came up with some goals for the next 3 years that we would like to accomplish with your help, with your suggestions, with the board's input, and of course, with the input and suggestions and great advice from our staff, everybody on the staff. And so here is the first goal, which should be no surprise to all of you. You just heard Bill really talk about the history of the pension benefits, but this first goal is pretty self-explanatory, right? Protect and improve pension benefits, right? Pretty self-explanatory. And you can see the two strategy statements right below it. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Some would even say a gift for the obvious. I know my kids would always accuse me of having a gift for the obvious, Dad. Right? Have you ever heard that from your kids? So this goal is listed as number 1 for a very important reason. Because based on all of the feedback from surveys that we've done of members of RIPIA, of PERF retirees who aren't members of RIPIA, this repeatedly comes up. Protect and improve our pension benefits. And as a retiree who expects my check on the 15th of the month, like you, in the right amount, like you, this is mission critical. Mission critical. Goal number 2. You've heard Bill talk a little bit about this, and you're going to hear some more from the next speaker, Joe Loftus, who I've had the honor and privilege of working with during my time in state government. This next one is really also mission critical for RIPIA's success, not just in this coming legislative session, but in those that are yet to come in the future, right? This one talks about increasing engagement. Now, we all know that it's important to increase that engagement with our elected representatives, right? Pretty straightforward. But during the strategic planning process, we've broadened the target audience. You can see that, right? We've talked about not just legislators, but state leadership in the executive branch, in the governor's office, room 206 in the state capitol building, right? We also talked about broadening the base for who we want to engage to include PERF employers. How many of you think that's a good idea, right? To get the PERF employers more engaged in understanding our needs and how important the pension is to us. And the last time I looked, and it's been a while, I think there, and Bill can correct me, and anybody else can out there as well, I think there may be more than 1,200 PERF employers scattered throughout our 92 counties. And those employers who are paying into the pension fund, right, they can have some influence on elected officials. So it seems to me that this goal has been expanded beyond just our state representatives, right? Our state senators who pass laws and affect the pension benefit to include other key groups. Does that make sense to you? Right? And I think targeting other state leaders as well as PERF employers is going to have a dramatic positive impact on RIPIA's ability to protect and improve our pension benefits. Make sense? Excellent. Number 3, Bill also talked about this important fact. We have to retain our membership and we have to grow our membership, right? I've always been very impressed and proud of the great work by the board and Bill and the staff, the chapter presidents, on trying to make sure we retain our members through great customer service. And I would argue that we have some of the highest customer service ratings ever, that person-to-person touch when you call the office, right? But we got to figure out why 50,000 PERF retirees are not joining RIPIA, right? You probably know some retirees who aren't members. We need your help in that personal touch of trying to explain to them the value of belonging to RIPIA. Now, some of us, including me, perhaps, tend to call the non-members, I call them free riders. Because when we argue in front of the General Assembly for an improved pension benefit, it doesn't just come to RIPIA members, does it? Huh? It comes to all PERF retirees, right? And while I probably should be more circumspect when I say they're free riders, essentially they are getting the benefit of RIPIA's work. Does that make sense? So we really need your help when meeting with or talking to somebody that's a PERF retiree that's not a member, to try to recruit them to be members. So number 3 is absolutely mission critical. As the board president stated, we're the largest organization in Indiana for older adults, right? And if we can even get bigger, I think we'll be more influential. Does that make sense? Right? In all 92 counties. Not just in Marion County, not just in central Indiana, not just in northwest Indiana or northeast Indiana or along the Ohio, down in southern Indiana. We'll be more influential in all 92 counties. We have to be. We'll be more influential in the 567 cities and towns in Indiana, right? So this is another key goal over the next 3 years for us to accomplish. And I would argue that we have to convince the 50,000 or so PERF retirees who aren't members that they need to join this great organization. Number 4, and you're going to hear a presentation shortly from the foundation president. This strategic plan is comprehensive. It encompasses all functions and facets of RIPIA. It encompasses the foundation as well as the insurance trust. So this is a comprehensive review and plan for all functions of RIPIA. How many in here have heard of the foundation? All right? Your contributions, I'm on the foundation board, or I have been on the foundation board under Marty Montgomery's outstanding leadership. Your contributions that we then grant to our neediest members, I think is one of the major assets of why people should join RIPIA, to do good, right? To do good for fellow retirees. So we have, in this strategic plan, talked about how can we start to raise more money. And I think last year, you're going to get a report, was a very good year of contributions from our members. Thank you very much. But how can we raise even more money to help our neediest retirees and members? I think that's really critical, but I also think it's a selling point for joining RIPIA because it gives us a chance as human beings who worked in the public sector, professionals, to help our fellow retirees that don't have enough money to pay their utilities, that don't have enough money to get a new pair of eyeglasses, who don't have enough money to get their medications. I don't know about you, I'm proud to belong to an organization that has that as a key function of its membership. I am proud to be part of that, and I know you are as well. You can see that we already have some partnerships, right? In Strategy 1, United Way, Amazon Smiles, Kroger. How many people shop at Kroger, right? We used to call it the People's Store. I'm from South Bend. We had Marsh up there, not Marsh. We had Martin's in South Bend. I don't know if they're still around or not. Are they? But Kroger is everywhere. That's why they called it the People's Store. And the more you shop there, the more it benefits the foundation. So we want to continue to have articles in the newsletter about the foundation, to highlight people who have received grants, and to highlight people who have contributed to the foundation. Make sense? Because when we can share stories, we can make better connections on a human basis with people, real stories. So that's goal number 4. Goal number 5. Again, pretty straightforward. We want to build on the excellent work of our current staff, of Bill, and everybody that works in the office to become even more efficient and more effective. We want to make sure we have a succession plan in place. We want to make sure that we have the best technology and tools for our staff to execute and implement these goals. That make sense? Right? It's not fair to them. We have to make sure that they are successful. They continue to be successful. We have to give them the means to be successful, right? The tools to be successful. And they've done one heck of a job. How about a round of applause for the staff again, huh? How about it? And finally, goal number 6. I'm hoping to be on time. Just pull me off if I'm, babbling, or having another senior moment, okay? Just pull me off. But I really believe in this. I'm passionate about the work that's been done and these goals that we're sharing with you. So this relates to the insurance trust, right? We know that this insurance trust and the work of the insurance staff and the board members of the trust is really important for our members. Really important. So we want to get better at providing expertise and information to our members about their insurance options. We've done a great job with Jim and his group, but we can always do better, right? And isn't the medical insurance so critical for us? Not just today, but going forward? Absolutely. It's a no-brainer. It's another one of those gift for the obvious, right? The other point here that I want to get to is strategy number 3, if you wouldn't mind focusing on that. We think that strategy number 3, if it could be accomplished, would also help us recruit members into the health insurance plans, those that are about to retire. And I know Bill and the staff and the board worked really hard on providing that under 65 health insurance option in the past, right, Bill? But it didn't work out because of a variety of reasons. But we might be able to partner with some other organization of similar interests, right? Where we have some synergies to get this done. Because I think we all know people, I'll bet, who would have retired by now if they had an affordable health insurance plan before Medicare kicked in, right? Anybody know anybody like that? Absolutely. We might have been one ourselves, right? Absolutely. So strategy number 3 is really, really important. So this concludes my presentation of the 6 goals. We went through it pretty fast. You have a hard copy. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have now. I'll be here through the lunch in case you want to talk some more about it, have some ideas, more heads to put to the work of a strategic plan. In my view, more brains, the better. So let me just conclude by saying that I think the board took a courageous step when it decided to engage in this work. It's risky if you don't do it well. It can actually be counterproductive to an organization if you don't do it well and you don't follow through. So kudos to the board, kudos to Bill and the staff for participating in this strategic plan, and kudos to all of you who are here for all the great work that you've done, all that you contribute to making Indiana a better place to live and work and raise a family. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Craig, Fred Lanning. I used to work.
Hey, Fred. Yeah.
I have a couple questions under strategic goal number 1.
Yep.
There's a reference to the 13th check, and no reference to a cost of living increase, and no reference to. Thank you. Is it working?
I'll try to repeat it too, Fred.
working now?
Yeah, I think so, but I'll repeat what you're saying, okay?
Under strategic goal number 1.
Yep,
Under strategic goal number 1.
there we go, Fred.
All right.
Now we're talking.
Okay. There's a reference to passing a 13th check for PERF retirees, but no reference to a COLA, to a cost of living, which is critically important as well, and also no reference to a tax credit similar to what the state of Indiana provides to retired federal employees and retired military employees, whether they retire here or move here after they retire. It would be both would be very important to us. Thank you.
Okay. Did everybody hear Fred's question? All right. So no reference to a COLA and no reference to the tax credit or the tax break that other retirees, especially federal employees and retirees, get, right? And part of that is based upon the principle in strategic planning, Fred, that I'm sure you've been through and are aware of also trying to have SMART goals. By SMART, I don't mean to imply that including that wouldn't be smart, okay? But we have to be realistic in our strategic planning process and the goals we put forward and where we harness our efforts to convince the legislature that we need to improve our benefits. And during the strategic planning process, with feedback from all the stakeholders, as well as the board and board members, a decision was made to focus in on the 13th check because it seems more realistic and based on surveys of our members, it is more desirable, more in demand than a COLA. Now, is that a perfect answer to your question? No, it's not. But as you know, when you go through a strategic planning process, right, you have to prioritize, make tough decisions, and focus in on what one thinks is practical and reasonable. Because if you get into the issue of a COLA again versus a 13th check, you find out that even a 1% COLA that we all received, all right, it probably wasn't very noticeable, but we all got it, costs a lot more than a 13th check. A lot more to the taxpayers and to the state of Indiana. So, that's a long-winded answer, Fred, to say that it was a matter of prioritization, not that those issues have not come up or been discussed, all right? But it was a matter of prioritization. And what is practical going into this coming legislative session and the next following budget session of the Indiana General Assembly? Great question. One that has been debated, and I think you'll probably maybe even hear more about that in next speaker's presentation, Fred. Yes, sir.
Okay, Craig, can you hear me?
I can, sir.
Good. Jim Krause from Fort Wayne. I support
Jim.
what Fred asked, but I also noticed in looking at Strategic Goal 2, Strategy 3, about increasing PERF employers' understanding, one thing I wonder if you included in that is reaching out to the cities, the counties, the other local government units of the value to their employees, to their retention of employees, of staying in PERF. Because I think Allen County was one that dropped out for their new employees for financial reasons, and those employees are likely not to have as good a retirement benefit. So promoting staying in PERF, getting back in PERF, should help the stability of PERF and therefore help us all.
Excellent observation. Everybody hear it? Okay, so my brief response there is that you'll see in other places in the strategic plan about the importance of collaboration, and working together with other groups that are covered by PERF, as well as it used to be called the Indiana Association of Cities and Towns when I was in state government. IACT was the acronym. I don't know if you've all heard of that association that represents all the mayors, right, et cetera. Now it's called AIM, which Accelerating Indiana Municipalities. So my point, Jim, is that we need to have a closer collaboration and partnership with that organization, as well as the Association of Indiana Counties, right? And that's in the plan, because we recognize what you've just said. I've worked at Indiana University, and I think IU has dropped out of PERF as well. And IU used to be a major employer, I believe, for PERF. So very great question, great observation, and that's why that collaboration piece is embedded in this strategic plan. Hey, Phil, is that you?
It is, Mr. Craig. How
Hey.
are you today?
I'm
Phil
all right.
Conklin, how you doing?
I'm all right, young man.
All right, you're great, great, great. Got to make a comment, though. I was in conversation with IPERF, Steve Russo, whom you know.
I do. Does everybody in here know who Steve Russo is?
And
He runs INPERF.
Incidentally, he's going to be the speaker at the Indianapolis chapter in October.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, not at all, but here's the point I verified with him. The state of Indiana has never given a dime to pay for any increase, 13 check or COLA, for PERF employees. Never appropriated a dime. This last year, they gave $25 million each year, and we're not sure whether PERF got any of that yet, but we're trying to find that out.
Okay.
But anyway, when you do your presentations, etc., don't apologize that the state doesn't have any money for paying for it, because it didn't pay for it anyway.
So Phil, great point. And I wouldn't apologize, trust me. We know that other interest groups did very well in the last General Assembly session, right? But, and I think technically, Phil is absolutely spot on. However, I learned a long time ago from my dad, who worked at Bendix up in South Bend for 50 years, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And somebody is paying for our benefit increases, right? Now, is it the state of Indiana directly? Great question. Is it the pension fund out of their earnings? Interesting observation, right? Is it spread among all of us taxpayers somehow? Could be. But great point. Would never apologize, Phil. Thank you very much for pointing that out, and thanks for getting Steve to be the speaker at your chapter meeting. Any other questions? I know I'm running out of, I ran way over. Okay. One more question. Bill says I have time. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Joe Hess from the great city of South Bend. I understood what you said about prioritization and maybe going for what would be the biggest payoff and the opportunity for success. But history has shown that we weren't successful in going for the 13th check last time. So I just have to wonder, why is it that Indiana state employees are not worthy of the same breaks that the state of Indiana is willing to give our federal employees?
Did everybody hear her question and her observation? I think that is a great point, and that issue that Fred initially raised about the tax credit or not taxing a certain portion of the benefits, I know has come up in the legislative committee for RIPIA on several occasions. These issues have been looked at, my fellow South Bender, all right? And I think it's one that we have to spend time on educating legislators, perf employers, as Jim and others have mentioned, right? To see that we deserve, I mean, what was the Social Security increase last time? 5.9%, I think, maybe close to 5 or over 5%. And I've heard rumors, what I read in the paper, that the next COLA for Social Security could be as high as 7, 8, 9%. So when one looks at what you're talking about, right, a 1% COLA or a COLA period, one has to kind of wonder about why we don't seem to be as valued as other interest groups or workers in the state of Indiana or retirees, right? So I apologize sincerely for not having a better, more forceful, clear answer, but I know your board and your legislative committee has worked and discussed the pros and cons of all these issues, ma'am. So I think that's the last question. I'm happy to stay around and talk about this some more with you. I'll be here through lunch. Again, kudos to all of you for being here, for all that you've done for our great state and all 92 counties. Much appreciated. Thank you.